Hey there, precious. You comfortable again? Good girl. You ready for our bedtime story? I told you. I always love this time of night. Remember, we're reading King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. Of course, I've been looking forward to this all day. Get to sit here with you, and we get to share these little moments. It just feels like I'm with you in this when everything slows down. Just me, you, and a good story. Did you have a good day today, precious? I hope so. You know that I always want what's best for you. Remember that for me, please. I'll always be here for these moments when you need quiet, no matter what else is happening. Now, where were we? Ah, here we go. I, Alan Quartermain of Durban, Natal, gentlemen, make an oath and say that is how I headed my disposition before the magistrate about poor Kiva's and Vendugold's sad deaths. But somehow it doesn't seem quite the right way to begin a book. And besides, am I a gentleman? What is a gentleman? I don't quite know, and I have had a lot to do with Negroes. No, I will scratch out that word Negroes, for I do not like it. I've known natives who are, and so you shall say, Harry, my boy, before you have done with this tale, I have known mean whites with lots of money, and fresh out from home too, who are not. At any rate, I was born a gentleman, though I have been nothing but a poor traveling trader and hunter all of my life. Whether I have remained so, I know not. You must judge that. Heaven knows I have tried. I've killed many men in my time, yet I have never slain wantonly or stained my hand in innocent blood, but only in self-defense. The Almighty gave us our lives, and I suppose He meant us to defend them. At least I have always acted on that, and I hope it will not be brought up against me when the clock strikes. There. It is a cruel and wicked world, and for a timid man, I've been mixed up in a great deal of fighting. I cannot tell you the rights of it, but at any rate, I have never stolen, though once I cheated a Kaffir out of a herd of cattle. But then he had done me dirty in turn, and it has troubled me ever since into that bargain. Well, it is 18 months or so ago since I first met up with Sir Henry Curtis and Captain Good. It was in this way. I had been up elephant hunting beyond Bamagwanwado and had met up with bad luck. Everything went wrong that trip. And to top up with, I got the fever badly. So soon as I was well enough, I trekked down to the diamond fields, sold such ivory as I had, together with my wagon and oxen, discharged my hunters, and took the postcart to the Cape. After spending a week in Cape Town, finding that they overcharged me at the hotel, and having seen everything there that there was to see, including the botanical gardens, which seemed to me likely to confer great benefit on the country, and the Houses of Parliament, which I will expect will do nothing of the sort, I determined to go back to Natal by the dugout. Then, lying at the docks, waiting for the Edinburgh Castle due in from England, I took my berth and went aboard. And that afternoon, the Natal passengers from the Edinburgh Castle transshipped, and we weighed and put to sea. Among these passengers that came aboard were two who excited my curiosity. One, a gentleman of about 30, was perhaps the biggest chested and longest armed man I ever saw. He had yellow hair, a thick yellow beard, clear-cut features, and large gray eyes set deep in his head. I never saw a finer-looking man, and somehow he reminded me of an ancient Dane. Not that I know much about ancient Danes, though I knew a modern Dane who did me out of 10 pounds. But I remember once seeing a picture of some of those gentry, who, I take it, were kind of a white Zulus. They were out drinking out of big horns, their long hair held down their backs, and as I looked at my friend standing there by the companion ladder, I thought that if he only let his grow out a little, put one of those chain shirts on his great shoulders, and took hold of a battle axe and a horn mug, he might have sat for a model in that picture, and, by the way, that it is a curious thing, and just goes to show how the blood will out. I discovered afterwards that Sir Henry Curtis, for that was the big man's name, is of Danish blood. He reminded me strongly of someone else, but at the time I could not remember who that was. The other man, who stood talking to Sir Henry, was stout and dark, quite of a different cut. I suspected at once that he was a naval officer. I don't know why, but it is difficult to mistake a Navy man. I have gone on several shooting trips with several of them in the course of my life, and they have always proved themselves the best and the bravest and nicest of fellows I have ever met. Though sadly given, some of them, to the use of profane language, I asked a page or two back, what is a gentleman? I will answer the question now. A Royal Navy officer is in a general sort of way, though of course there may be a black sheep amongst them here and there. I fancy it is just the wide seas and the breath of the gods' winds that wash their hearts and blow the bitterness out of their minds and make them what men ought to be. Well, to return. I proved right again. I ascertained that the dark man was a naval officer, a lieutenant of 31, who, after 17 years of service, had been turned out of Her Majesty's employ with the barren honor of commander's rank, because it was nearly impossible that he should be shot out into the cold world to find a living, just when they are beginning to really understand their work, and to reach the prime of their life. I suppose they don't mind it, but for my own part, I had to rather earn my bread as a hunter. 1/2 are as scarce perhaps, but you do not get so many kicks. The officer's name that I found out, by referring to the passengers list, was Good, Captain John Good. He was broad, of medium height, dark and stout, and a rather curious man to look at. He was ever so neat, and so very clean-shaved, and he always wore an eyeglass in his right eye, and it seemed to grow there, for it had no string. And he never took it out except to wipe it. At first I thought he used to sleep in it, but afterwards I found that this was a mistake. he put it in his trousers pocket when he went to bed, together with his false teeth, of which he did have two beautiful sets that, my own being nothing of the best, have often caused me to break the 10th commandment. But I am anticipating. Soon after, we had gotten under way for the evening, closed in, and brought with it a very dirty weather. A keen breeze sprung off the land, and a very aggravated Scotch mist soon drove everyone from the deck. As for the Dunkfeld, she is a flat-bottomed punt, and is going light as she rolled very heavily, and it seemed as though she would go right over. But she never did. It was quite impossible to walk about, so I stood near where the engines were to keep warm, and amused myself with watching the pendulum, which was fixed opposite to me, swinging slowly backwards and forwards as the vessel rolled, marking the angle she touched at each lurch. "That pendulum is wrong. It is not properly weighted," suddenly said a somewhat testy voice at my shoulder. Looking round, I saw the naval officer, whom I had noticed when the passengers came aboard. "Indeed. What makes you think so?" I asked. "Think so? I don't think at all. Why there," as she righted herself after a roll, "if the ship really rolled to the degree that that thing pointed to, then she would have never rolled again. That's all. But it's just like these merchant skippers. They are always so confoundingly careless." Just then the dinner bell rang, and I was not sorry, for it is a dreadful thing to have to listen to an officer of the Royal Navy when he gets in on that subject. I only know one thing worse, and that is to hear a merchant skipper express his candid opinion of officers of the Royal Navy. Look at you, precious. Already asleep. Good. You need it, you know. Now, go up. Stay safe with Morpheus tonight. And tell him I said hi. Sweet dreams, precious. Stay safe on the River Lethe tonight. Okay?